What's up, everybody? It is awesome and absolutely great to be back in the barbershop. Listen, it's been a minute since we've been here, so I'm excited and definitely overjoyed to be able to come back to you guys on this format and just get a chance to just share and do what we do, and that's pull the covers off, right? And so today, man, I have an opportunity to share the room with one of my near and dear friends, my brother. I'm gonna let him do his own introduction. But this cat and I go back, man, probably 15 years or more.
Yeah.
We've known each other, from different facets. We've seen each other and worked together in the community. We've done sports camps together. We've done the gamut. So I'm excited, man, to have him on with us today. And I know that he's got some stuff that he wants to share and will share that's going to hopefully inspire, enlighten, and educate some brothers out here as to what works and what's going to make a difference for all of us. So I'm gonna turn the floor over to you, brother. Share with the people who you are and what you do.
Absolutely, man. Let me first start by saying thank you to my brother Ned White, man, for inviting me to be a part of this and to talk about this very, very important topic, man. And who better to have this conversation than a brother that I've watched, whether it been in the family sphere, the faith sphere, the fitness and sports sphere, you name it, as a dad, as an employee, employer, you name it, man. I've seen, that as a coach, consistently promote a holistic perspective of health in general, to the Black experience, man. And so I really appreciate that you do this. My name is Tone Bell. The husband of the beautiful Diane Bella. I think she's the most beautiful woman in the world. Shout out to her.
There you go.
I got 3 kids, Promise, Serenity, and Joshua. I'm born and raised right here in the city of Trenton. We still live in Trenton, and we're going to die in Trenton because we love, not because we have to, but because we choose to. And we feel like we got a unique calling in that regard to live, stay, work, and play in the community that birthed us in many ways. And so
Awesome.
I'm a pastor at Transformation Church right here in the city of Trenton, 431 Pennington Avenue. We are at the Capital Area YMCA. I'm also a community activist. I actually work for an organization by the name of Salvation and Social Justice. I'm an outreach worker on the Trenton Restorative Street Team, where we are a community-based violence intervention and prevention organization, really just working alongside community stakeholders to try to stop violence before it starts. In many ways, while we appreciate law enforcement, in many ways, we also know that their work in many ways is intervening. We want to be preventative in that work. And so I'm working with people, boots on the ground, doing that kind of work and things of that nature.
My man.
Man. That's a little bit about me.
Just a little bit, just a snapshot. Gave y'all the elevator spill. I ain't mad at it. Listen, I want to say to you, man, publicly, bro, I appreciate the work and the effort that you're doing in this community. Because like you, man, I'm Trenton bred, and this is home. And to know that there's some good brothers out there with their boots on the ground like you makes me sleep a lot better. So I'm thankful, man, for the work that you're doing alongside of a whole lot of other good brothers and sisters that are out here. Amen. So continue to do the good work. I'm glad you dropped all that, though, because what that gives us a little bit of validity, because we're going to really pull the covers back today to talk about this men's health stuff, man. Listen, if you didn't read it, in the topic today, we're really going to take a chance to sit back, talk about, what's working, what's not working when it comes to particularly Black men and our health issues, the things that we do well and the things that we don't do well, right? Because some of us are out here trying. Some of us are just like, hey, whatever. But it's important for us to really just get a grip on what's working for us and what's not working for us, right? So, that's what we want to talk about today, man. And I hope you're ready for that, Tone.
I'm as ready as I'm going to be. I'll tell you that.
All right. Listen, man. Listen, I always say, bro, listen, we'll drag you along until you catch up. So you in here, so you got to get with it. We rolling, right? So I'm gonna put this on the table, and we'll bounce back and forth, bro. Please know that this format is really just no different than if we were sitting in your living room,
yes, sir,
building and breaking bread.
Yes,
right?
sir.
So, don't feel like you got to follow any kind of format. If you want to jump in and you got to, and the spirit leads you to drop something,
Yes, sir.
drop it. You know
Got
what
it.
I mean? You ain't even got to apologize to me for cutting me off because I know it comes from a good place.
Yes, sir.
All right. So
Gotcha.
we're gonna get right into it, man. So let me start off, man, by asking this question. And why is men's health, and I'm gonna broaden the scale and say men's health, physical health, as well as men's mental health, important to us and to you, and why?
Yeah. To me personally, man, it's important. It's become something important to me because I watch my grandfather,
Mm,
father, hardworking men in their own right, but they live their lives in such a way where most men do, right? Is that I'm a provider, right?
mm,
Provider, and so I heard Chris Rock say something powerful one day. He said that the only people who are accepted unconditionally in this world are women and babies, right? Men are only accepted on the basis that they can provide and produce something.
what are you bringing to the table?
And while there's something to say about men providing and producing, right? Man don't work, man don't eat. That narrative, if taken to an extreme, right, it leaves no margin for a man to take care
Mm,
of, right? And I've seen that duplicated in my dad and I even see it in my father. And so it wasn't until I grew up and learned the value of stuff like self-care, right? And
mm,
the value of and recognizing that self-care is not selfishness, it's actually stewardship, right? Because the best thing that I can do for my wife and my kids and the community that I serve is take care of me so that when they're with me, they don't get a part of me, they get the whole of me. Um,
mm.
so to answer the question more simply, I would just say that uh, men's health is important to me personally as a man because it's a part of my growing experience as a man. Like, again, I didn't see that lived out, but I'm trying to live it out in my life. But also, I recognize that for men in general, the best thing that we can give to the people that we lead and care for and love is the healthy version of ourselves. And if we're not healthy, we're cheapening the people that we love and lead experiences with us. So,
Nice. I want to chime in on something you dropped, right? And I don't know. You use the term stewardship,
yeah,
right? So for those of us who are biblically minded, we understand what that means, right? Because it's a broader picture. A lot of folks think immediately when they hear stewardship, they think about the financial stewardship, like you're good with your dollars. But you're using it in a reference of, owning the responsibility of, and if I'm not mistaken here, owning the responsibility of taking care of yourself for those who you're around and that are counting on you.
absolutely, man. Absolutely, man.
Right.
And I love that you went biblical with it because at the end of the day, like, you can't talk about stewardship if you're not talking about ownership, right? So
Mm-hmm.
4:1 says, "The earth is the Lord's, the fullness thereof, and all that dwell therein." In other words, like, we belong to Him,
There
right?
you go.
But He's giving us these bodies and these lives and these resources that ultimately belong to Him to steward, to manage under His care and His authority. And I agree. I totally agree, man. That 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 we've got to be better managers over that which God has given us, starting with ourselves. We don't. And we automatically think about money, but what good is money if you ain't got a healthy mind? Think through
Or a
how
healthy body, right? Right. Yeah. Yeah. You just sit there in a chair like I can't move to go even spend the money that God's blessed me with. No, no, no doubt, no doubt, no doubt. And I like the fact, man, and I'm gonna echo this for all those brothers. And let me give a quick shout out to my man Calvin Thomas, who's watching with us today, man. Appreciate you, dude,
ah,
listening in as always.
OG, love him.
Yes, sir.
Love,
Yes, sir. Yeah, right. You called him out, right? That is the
love him.
OG. That is
Love
the
him.
one of the original.
Thank you for all the
Um,
work you're doing, man. Appreciate you.
yes, sir. So understanding this piece for me was important, and I heard you use this term, and for me in my walk, this was important for me to understand that there's a responsibility that falls on my head when it comes to taking care of me,
Right.
right? Because like you made mention of the fact that a man who doesn't work doesn't eat.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a mantra that we grew up with. My dad, who was a hardworking, guy who pulled up his bootstraps from Mississippi to New Jersey to provide. And that's what he did well. What he
Mm.
didn't do well was model the behavior of self-care.
Mm.
And so when I understood, when I became a dad, that it was important for me to not only be the provider, be this guy who is bringing the bread into the table, but it was also important for me to be at the table.
Mm. That's
You know
good.
what I mean? Because it's the value in your presence is huge, but you can't be
Right.
present if you're not physically or mentally in a good state. You know, I think one of the biggest problems that a lot of our elders and the OGs of our lives had to deal with was that, they were pressed to
Yeah.
be providers.
Yeah.
And in that process, you lose the understanding of connectability to the family, to the community, to your spouse.
Mm.
And so then they find themselves in these bad places, consuming alcohol, using other substances to compensate for the pressure that they've been put under.
Yeah.
So there's a huge responsibility, at least from my perspective, that we have to be mindful of, not just to be the provider, but how do I stay present as I provide?
No, that's
It's
good.
huge.
That's good. I love that you talk about the present piece, because I think that, I once heard it said that the best gift that you can give somebody is not presence, but your presence.
Absolutely.
And,
Absolutely.
and
You-
I think we underestimate that oftentimes,
yeah, yeah.
we
You,
focus
you
on
just
providing.
echoed that. As you said that, my brother Monzo was just on chiming that same thing, you know, and I think that's huge for us to be able to understand that our presence is important, um, not only in the development of what we do, but also in the development of our children, our relationships, whether they're in the home or outside of the home. That's crucial for us.
Yeah,
Hold on.
absolutely. Can you hear me now? I'm
I
getting
don't
some
know. I
bad.
think I'm getting some feedback. Hold on 1 second, bro. Oh, all right. I think brother Pastor is Bellamy's having some mic issues, but we'll get him back on. Listen, I just want to say this while we're waiting for him to get back in the door, that the ability to be able to manage our lives as men, is way beyond our financial responsibility. The mindset of getting yourselves in a healthy position, to be able to do the things that we're supposed to do and we need to do is paramount. And that involves us making sure that we're getting to our doctor's appointments and making those appointments. I'll share this tidbit, and I beg the forgiveness of the family, because I'm going to say this in a way that I hope doesn't offend. But I just recently dealt with a childhood friend who passed away, dealing with issues in his health that he had not shared or had not dealt with, that ultimately ended up with him passing away. That story is so common in a lot of our communities and in our families that, it's not good. I tell folks often, I remember even my dad, who, passed away 19 years ago, to a massive heart attack. But it could have been somewhat prevented if he had taken care of himself better, if he had did the things that he needed to do to stay healthy. He would have probably been with us a little bit longer than he initially was. And so, as men and as leaders in our community and our families, we have to take responsibility for our own health, our own self-care, so that we can be there for the folks who are depending on us and need us. Yeah, Manjo, I hear Manjo, you're absolutely right. Yeah, Bellamy is my dude. I love that brother so much. I'm hoping he can get back in here, so he can share a little bit more what's going on from his perspective as well when we're talking about this. And just to give everybody this also information as well, this is not a one-time conversation. As many of the dialogues that we share and we have on this network, it's always about opening up the door of communication so that folks can start having the dialogue, to start talking about those tough issues, those tough conversations, so that you can build better opening opportunities to share how you're feeling, share those moments that are weighing on us or are heavy on us, so that we're not in this alone, and we realize that we're not in it alone because people are coming alongside you. Um, and for this one in particular, and I just, as I stated, and I shared my moment a minute ago, this one's important to me because I want to be able to have brothers understand that it is so important for us to take care of ourselves, to be there for ourselves, in a way that not only models behavior that our children can follow, but allows us again to be present so that our children have us long term. There's nothing worse than, seeing a young man, a young woman, who had to grow up with one of their parents not being there because of some ailment that could have been prevented, or some situation that just required us being a little more disciplined in our walk. So we're going to be talking about this for a couple of weeks. This conversation is going to probably last for about 3 or 4 weeks for me. We're going to deal with this. I'm going to have somebody come on in the following week to give us the perspective from a physician's position, to let us know that, hey, this thing isn't just about, hey, I need to do this culturally, but it's really about, what are some of the things that we need to be looking at? What are some of the things that we need to be dealing with? And how do we deal with them from a medical perspective, and doing it in a way that's healthy and right for us so that we're living better and living longer. And then ultimately the other conversation that I want to have, and we will definitely dig into coming up towards the latter part of this series, is going to be talking about the need to make sure that we are putting life insurance and things in place for those who we leave behind, and covering those bases, because there's a lot of times that we as individuals will not put that in place, or we won't even have the conversations about life and death and what that looks like, and how do we make that palatable for our children, our significant others, and the ones we love. So that's my cry in the dark, that we stick to this and we really hold on to this. I'm not sure. I was hoping that my brother Bellamy would have jumped back on by now. But we'll see what I can do here. Let me see here. I can dig into my wonderful resource pool. I'm going to pull in someone that's, if she is available. Up, here we go.
Of course, I'm always available for my brother. Hey,
Look
hey,
at you.
hey,
Look at
y'all.
you. Always,
We
always ready. What's the word say?
always,
Be ye always ready.
always ready.
Be
Yes,
ye
yes,
always
yes.
ready.
I'm like really proud of you guys as brothers, as men, really more so as minority men, really taking on a lot of these really difficult conversations, Ned. I think that we have yet to really embrace a lot of our
Mhm.
discomforts that we have around our health and mental health. Um, Especially when it comes to our male counterparts. And so I'm saying that not just because, okay, I'm so glad that you are at the table, but I'm glad that women can come to the table and listen to the men, because there's a part that we have to play as well, right? And so
Absolutely.
I'm gonna step right out here and just,
Uh-oh.
from the gate, and I'm just
Listen,
gonna say,
you've been waiting for this moment. Go ahead. What you got?
right, what is it that, how can women participate in the health journey of their male counterparts, their
Mm.
male sons? How can women really support the male process of them really taking care of themselves?
Wow. You were holding on to that one. You must have been like, yes, he asked me to come on. I got a question for him.
I always love you, bro. It's always
Listen,
love.
I think that, one of the things that women do differently than we do is that you guys are better at taking care of yourselves and going to your pre-planned even appointments, and
Hmm.
making those appointments in advance, and men aren't quite there in our walk, unfortunately. But I believe that by sisters continually to do the process, meaning that you're modeling that behavior, that you're putting that out there for us, but then also educating us in the sense of, the benefits of doing so. I
Yeah.
think a lot of times for us, we tend to, as it was stated earlier, we tend to get stuck in this place where we think like, hey, I'm out here doing my due diligence to bring the bread to the table. And then we forget the importance of keeping ourselves in a place where we can help and be, part of the long-term process. Right.
Mm.
And I think that, because a lot of our movement is about the here and now, like, let's get it done. Sometimes we forget about like, how do I prepare long-term? And sisters can help us understand that by leading by example in that area, but also kind of educating us on the values that come from making those appointments and communicating with our doctors so that we're getting that information.
I'm gonna be real. So
Let's
it
be
sounds
real.
good, right? But
Right.
at the end of the day, our fellas are stubborn. And as much as I want to say my daddy will listen to me and he will go to the doctor, let's just be honest, he doesn't. And he says if it ain't broke, I ain't gonna go fix it. I feel good. I don't want to know it if it's almost like out of sight, out of mind.
Outside out of
I don't
mind.
need to go to no doctor because I woke up this morning. I'm all right. Just go ahead and drink some honey, like what's that, molasses, and that's gonna
Right.
be
Right.
okay. What is it really that we can do um, as women to be able to really not fight with you, but to support you in this endeavor?
I got you. So listen, this is new Ned talking, so I know it's a little bit different, but I'm okay with a quick fight. Ain't nothing wrong with beating
Okay.
me up every now and then, right? The,
Okay.
the, the deal is, I think that ends up becoming such a pushback is when
Mm,
the beat up becomes continuous and you just like, okay, I'm gonna beat him up until he do what I want him to do or what I think he should do. But
mm,
I think it's important for sisters to say to their spouses, to their husbands, to even their sons, listen,
mm-hmm.
this is important. And
Right.
here's why it's important. Because I love you and I
Mm,
want you to be around. This is necessary for us to continue to keep our family in place. Because if something happens to you,
mm,
imagine what goes on when you're gone. I'm left to do this all by myself. It takes two of us to do this. And if you leave me, now I don't have that support. Our children don't have that support. I think those tough conversations in a loving way are important for us, and they're necessary, because the last thing you can do to a brother who's really trying to do family right is challenge me to come to the table.
yeah.
You challenge me to come to the table, I got to show up now, because you can't make it sound like, yo, you doing that by yourself. No, I got to do my part. And so if being part of the healthy living becomes part of the challenge, then we'll step up. And I think those are the conversations that need to happen in a way that, again, it's educating the spouse, the husband, on what he needs to do and why, not just being like, you better go. Like, that,
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
doesn't work.
yeah. I think
There we
if
go.
I chime in now, I finally made it back on.
Yes. Welcome back.
Absolutely. I think it's a great question there. And I would start by saying that I agree with you, Ned, in the sense that, you know, uh, just the idea of having the conflict is not the issue. Like
Right.
conflict can be, it doesn't always have to be a burdensome obstacle in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
It can be a beautiful opportunity for us to
Right.
grow together. I think some of my closest friends are people I fought first. You know,
Right.
That's
so,
true. Me and my best friend, we
Right.
did have fights. Yeah.
and so I think I want to put that into perspective. But then I would say, just to speak more practically for those who might be listening, in terms of things that I think are important when we're having conversations or conflicts or disagreements, whatever you want to call it, with our with our sisters, it's that it's tone and timing
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
are important.
Wow.
Tone and timing are important. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
women, women spell love right, TALK. They want to talk. But men spell love RESPECT. Find out what it means to me,
Respect.
right?
Right.
Mm.
Right. Right.
Shout out to the great evangelist Aretha Franklin, right? Uh, and I think that women underestimate sometimes the power of their words and the lives of their men. And I think
Yes.
uh, knowing not just what to say in terms of the timing, but knowing the tone in which you use, frame
Mm.
tone in which you use what you say is really, really important, man. I find that if I'm fresh off of work and I'm super busy and I don't have any gap time between work and home, and my wife asks me something, I'm a little more on edge than if she gives me that gap time to kind of get my head together and then say, brother, pick up the broom and wash the dishes. If you want to sweep me off my feet, pick up a broom. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think that just two practical things that I would say is just tone and timing, man. And that's just two things I would share. So
Yeah.
I hope
Well,
that
I
answers the
appreciate,
question.
yeah, I appreciate that.
Okay.
I don't have a yes or a no. I'm here to learn just
That
like
was just,
everyone else. And
yeah.
so I just appreciate the opportunity to come in and ask you guys that question here in the barbershop. Um,
Awesome. No, that was absolutely the perfect timing for that question, because that's a real moment, right? That is a
yeah.
real moment, and I think it's important for us to be able to respond to that in a real time way. I'm gonna take a hot second because my man Calvin just dropped something that I wanted to share. If you haven't seen it, so women should demand that their men are health conscious and make that a part of the relationship agreement. Stand your ground and continue to have that difficult conversation. The importance of their presence in the family is critical. Amen to that, Calvin. Amen to that, bro. Listen,
yeah, that's solid. That's solid.
As relationships are developed and come together, the term he used, agreement, stuck out for me, because there's a coming together that is an agreement, a binding agreement that says, hey, we're in this together. And so, but in order for us to be in this together, here are the things I need. Here are some non-negotiables. And one of those non-negotiables should be, I need you to be health conscious. You
That's
know,
solid.
and knowing that means that you have to be honest with the person and saying to them, like, hey, listen, diabetes runs in my family, or high blood pressure runs in my family, or, these things. Here's my lineage, so that you know how to handle me or deal with me and approach what I'm doing. Because you might listen, if I say to you that hypertension runs in my family, you might want to limit the amount of salt you putting in the food you cooking for me on a regular basis.
Come on, sir.
But you need to know that. And that's
good.
part of that agreement and that understanding. So yeah, Calvin, absolutely. I think that is definitely something that, relationships are important to have.
And I think that's solid. If I could chime really quickly, is that if the truth be told, I didn't learn how to express myself emotionally from a man. I learned how to express myself in healthy ways emotionally from the women in my life. My grandma, my mom, my wife, right? And I think that's by and large because men, you already know this, like the only emotion that it's okay, because I'm talking about emotional health here, right? Like,
right.
like the only emotion that we're taught that it's okay for us to express is anger, because you can be mad and still be a man after all, right? Right? Like we're not really taught that it's okay.
And if you aren't angry, then they question your manhood.
Exactly, right? We're not really taught that it's okay for us to express feelings like sadness or frustration or disappointment. Like those types of feelings make you soft, right? And so, like I think I agree with Calvin in the sense that women need to demand that, right, in their men. But also, I think part of the reason why women can demand it is because they're the ones teaching it in many cases, right?
That's right.
And training, equipping us on how to relate to them better emotionally. I think it's really important, man, because I think that this notion, for an example, that you're not a man because you express your emotions, I think it's just utterly foolish. Like Jesus was the strongest man ever, bullied the grave, rose with all power, literally as tough as nails. But when you read the biblical narrative, he was in touch with his emotions.
Right.
So don't this stuff that I'm not a strong man because I express weakness, sadness, or sorrow. Jesus was the strongest man ever, yet he was in touch with his emotions. And so I'll just leave that there, man. But I think that's important to note as well. So
yeah. No, that's good stuff right there, because it don't get no tougher than Jesus.
Right. And I want to be clear. I don't want to put the onus on women to teach us, how to be emotionally healthy. But I'm just saying that in general, from my personal experience, there were more women readily available to teach me that than men. That's what I'm saying.
And I'll add to that, because I agree with you on that one. So I think that, our sisters have a better handle on it in most cases than we do. And so I'll implore most men to step up to the table and be receptive to that, because I think that what happens a lot of times, because of the fact that we've been shared and, indoctrinate with, hey, be tough, don't cry, stand up. We sometimes push back against the mindset of a woman who says, baby, you got to take care of yourself.
Absolutely.
Maybe you need to rest. Maybe you need to do, like, they'll say it to us. And I mean, I've been, having been a married man, I've had those conversations, and then the response was like, I'll rest later. I got stuff to do. Or, I'll get to the doctor, make the appointment, and then I'll cancel that appointment because I got it didn't match my schedule, and I'm doing other stuff in the midst. But we have to be receptive to that because, to Calvin's point, our presence is critical. Right? Our presence is critical. And if we aren't health conscious, and if we aren't aware of where we are in our mental wellness and our physical wellness, then our ability to be present becomes minimal. Nothing worse. Listen, I remember one of my best friends who passed away used to always say that, one of the things he dreaded happening to him was if something would have happened and he wasn't able to enjoy being out with his children. He was a family man who loved being out, taking his kids places. And his biggest fear was like, dude, if I ever got hurt at work or something happened where I couldn't move around, he was like, my life would feel like it was wasn't worth living, because he'd be like, I can't do stuff with my kids. And so knowing that, and I think most dads are in that place where we're like, listen, one of the biggest joys is being able to enjoy your children. And, if God's blessed you with them, to know that you are limiting your ability to do that by not taking care of yourself is just ridiculous. Why would you not want to spend the most time you could with your family by just taking care of you? And it's just that simple, just taking care of yourself.
Yeah, I think that's good, man. That's good.
Monique, like she was about to say something. I saw that look on her face.
Yeah.
What you was about to say, Monique?
No, I think that this is a great conversation in my mind and in my eyes. This is the man's conversation that y'all need, right? And so I step back, and again, I'm a student. I also think about what happens inside of a home, especially when we're dealing with men who suffer from mental health issues, and how it becomes a struggle, right? A real struggle to even just say, baby, maybe we should go, or what do you think? Maybe you're dealing with some anxiety issues. Maybe you're struggling with ADHD, which is why you can't keep a job. Maybe you're having these outbursts and things like that because you're dealing with other manic things that are happening. It doesn't mean that it's you're weak. I often hear and see from clients and other individuals that are close to me that they believe that they are weak or less than, or they haven't met up to a certain type of manly standard if they say, I'm going to go seek out additional resources or help to ensure that my mental health is in order. So I throw that on you guys only to ask, and to also say, how can we support, right? Again, I don't know. I don't know what else to say or what else to do. And I know that there are a lot of women who are in my shoes and who are coming up Gen Z, who are dealing with certain young males who are thinking that, as marijuana legalizes through different areas, like this is the prescript for everything. It helps me focus. It helps me do this. But no, brother, there's some other things going on in there. How can we support them in understanding that their mental health is really important in this process?
That's a good question. That's a great question.
You want to tackle that one first, brother Bellamy?
I love y'all with all my heart.
She threw a good one out there. I'm gonna let you go first on that one.
I had a feeling you would do that. You would do that. But listen, she's absolutely. You're right. This is an excellent question. I think that one of the largest atrocities in our community is that we don't address or deal with mental health the right way, or at all in most cases, right? And no, the answer is not to band-aid the situation by camouflaging it with whether it's marijuana or alcohol or sex or whatever vice you may gravitate to kind of minimize what you're thinking, feeling, or trying to cope with. Mental health is tough. It is absolutely tough, and it has destroyed families.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
there are so many folks who I know personally who have had to deal with mental health. I mean, I have two of my sisters, to be honest with you, and I'm gonna put them on blast. And forgive me, I'll apologize later. Uh,
It's all right. We take the covers off. Family
dealt
understands.
with
Oh gosh. Oh
mental
gosh.
health issues in their marriages,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
To the point where situations where their ex-husbands were volatile, they were dysfunctional in their
Mm.
ability to just stay consistent in the home, and it tears the family apart. It torments and traumatizes our children. It torments and traumatizes the spouse, your woman, your wife,
Mm.
because as the man, you're expected to stand in a certain format.
Mm.
You're expected to
Mm.
be the leader. You're
Mm.
expected to be the head. You're expected to be the protector.
Mm.
And then
Mm.
when the protector becomes the tormentor, it flips the entire narrative in the household. And
Mm.
so yeah,
Mm.
it's crazy that as a society and even as a community, we don't deal with or address our mental health concerns better because we've been plagued with them for generations.
Mm.
uh, Generations of stuff. I think we at one time in one of our past shows talked about, I think a lot of us know either in our own family or a family that we know very closely that had that wayward uncle that they kept locked away in the back room somewhere that
Right.
nobody talked to or knew about. It's like yeah, that's Uncle so and so. He up in the room. We just take his food up to him, and somebody go up there and get the plate later.
Mm.
That is a mental struggle
It
that
is.
a lot of our communities had to deal with that never got addressed. It
Mm.
never got addressed. It was always the brush it under the rug mindset, and then thinking that folks would just forget that that big lump in the carpet exists. And so, yeah, we have to figure out. I mean, I'm saying this, and forgive me, Monique. I know you asked this question, you posed the question, and I don't really have a pinpoint answer, but it is something definitely that we need to start looking at better because it is a huge, huge obstacle in our community, and it grows daily because of the fact that some of the stuff you even just alluded to. Because the last thing you want to do is have a mental health struggle and then camouflage it or try to band-aid it with weed or alcohol or anything else, because you're not dealing with the issue or the core. You're just dealing with the surface, and if you only deal with the surface, you're never going to eliminate or deal with the real issue. I watched. It's so funny. I watched a video the other day. I love using analogies that deal with agriculture, and
Mhm.
this person was pulling up the weeds out of a flower bed, and the
Mm.
weeds had basically consumed everywhere. And she was like, "If I had just cut this plant at the ground level and just got rid of the plant, I'd have been like, oh, it looks nice." But the weed of the plant, or the root of the plant, excuse me, still existed under the surface. So
Mm.
she
Right.
had to literally dig the entire flower bed out because that root had contaminated all of the other flowers in the bed, right?
Yeah.
So when we have mental health issues in our families, it's just that way. There is this over controlling root that gets within every fabric of our families. And if we don't start dealing with it holistically with everybody, it'll always exist. And we have to figure out how to do that.
Yeah, I think that's good, man. I think you're absolutely right. And I think you're asking a really, the reason why the question was hard for me to answer is because like like the way you framed it was like, how can we support? And
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just being honest, from my personal experience, I feel like y'all doing all the support y'all need to do.
Mm,
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
I think support is not the root issue. I think the issue is some other things, right? And
yeah.
so first,
Mhm.
but if, because I like to be practical in the advice that I give, the first thing I would say is pray, because I think that the struggle for men to understand our need to be healthy, mentally, emotionally, whatever you put it, I think it's a theological issue first
Mm.
and foremost. And I say that
Mm,
because when you think about it, like, you cannot obey the great commandment without taking great care of yourself. I'm gonna say that
Mm.
again for the folk way in the back. You cannot obey the great commandment without taking great care of yourself. Love the Lord with all your heart, mind,
Mine.
soul,
Yes,
and
soul.
strength.
That's right.
Mhm.
That's emotions, that's your
Body,
mind,
soul,
mental
and
state, that's all of that encompassing. And I think the problem largely, and I'm speaking just from a pastoral perspective, like we've in many ways taught men to try to theologize their trauma away.
Mm.
okay, thank you. That
Right,
was where I
Say that.
was gonna
Say that.
go.
Yeah, absolutely.
right,
Go
right,
take
right.
that a
We've
little
tried,
deeper for me, Tone.
Mhm.
right. They've tried to theologize their trauma away, right? Like where it's
Mm-hmm.
like, yo, like you got to push through this. You even got acronyms, PUSH, pray and push until something happens. Like the ramifications of
Yeah.
that are huge on a family, huge on a family. How
Yeah.
about pause and
Right. Right.
stop and get some help? You know what I'm saying?
Amen.
Like, let's change the acronym, right? Like, and so I think so. First and foremost, I would pray because I think that honestly, there's a spiritual nature in which we need God to help us really see our need. That it's okay to be needy, right? Right. That doesn't
Mhm.
make us weak. It makes us human, right? And I
Mhm.
think that we, particularly Black men, we feel pressure to be heroes more than we feel the freedom to be human, right? And so
Mm.
I
Wow.
think I would start there, and then I would just say like continuing to help us and just basic ways like destigmatizing the need the, destigmatizing the need for us to take care of our mental health. For an example, small things like how many times have you talked to a brother and he says you say stuff say something about emotions or something or mental health or something. He'd be like, man, I don't really got emotions. That's a female thing.
That's a female
Always.
thing.
You,
I
like he,
heard that today.
I've had people,
We
but
hear it often. Yep.
I've had sisters and brothers gently but firmly kind of rebuke me and challenge me on that to say, well, I've watched you at a Yankees game or at a Sixers game, and you express a lot of emotions there.
Right.
You know, so it's not that you don't have emotions, right? Right. It's just that you haven't processed them enough to
Mm.
actually be able to express them in a healthy way, right?
Right. Right.
Right.
We don't
And
practice that.
exactly. And so I would say like prayer, helping us destigmatize it, man. But then also, man, to your point, Sister Monica, like just listening to us, like what you are
Mhm.
doing right now is a model for what I think is needed for men to uh, feel like we could be better at our mental health in general, man. Just having people listen to. If I can be transparent, I remember in the
Absolutely.
in the pandemic. Um, this was middle of 2020. I'm a pastor leading a church where I got people who are, firefighters and correction officers and work in nursing and all type of medical fields. And these are the people who come to me for help and prayer.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
so, who do I go to? And I remember it was sometime around the time where everything I think happened with George Floyd. I had to preach a sermon addressing it that Sunday. Wow,
Mm.
there are times on Sunday morning where I've got to be a shepherd when I really feel like I need a chair
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
counseling, but that's just the nature of the work that I do. And I never forget it,
Mhm.
man. I woke up one morning and I was so overwhelmed that I just screamed out.
Mhm.
And my wife and my children had to run downstairs to hold me.
Mm.
The people who I hold up had to hold me up.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was in that moment where I could no longer
Wow.
put the covers on. I had to let the covers off and
Yeah.
let them
See.
see
Yeah.
how my kids, who I'm their hero, they had to see my humanity.
Yeah.
And they had to hear
But
daddy.
wasn't that Jesus? That wasn't that what Jesus showed us? I preached a sermon on Mother's Day, mothering the mother, right? And what
Mm.
that looks like, right? Um, that we all are in need of the very things that we think that we always have to show up and present to others.
That's
And I
correct.
think
Yeah.
that and so Pastor Bellamy, I'm gonna ask and I'm gonna challenge our lay leaders and those who say they are leaders of I'm going to challenge you guys to what do you think that you then need to offer from the church space to be able to help and support and unify the brothers, the men, to be able to see process, understand, and kind of hold up this part of themselves? Or do you feel like the church is actually doing that in any way? And if it isn't, do you believe that this is something that you guys should be doing?
Are you asking me directly?
I'm throwing it out
Put
there.
it out there, but you're gonna take the
So
lead on this one.
just know, again, this is a safe space, and we don't have to have all the answers, right? We're not here to have all the
Not at all.
answers, but we are here to ask those difficult
Those
questions
tough
to
questions.
bring other people back in, to have these conversations, and hopefully, as you said, to begin the modeling, right? So
Uh,
if it is what you believe, then let's begin to do the work.
No, I believe it, but I'll say this. I think, sadly, I think that there are some churches that I know that are doing a phenomenal job around these ideas, creating safe spaces for people to understand that you're not a weak Christian because you struggle with mental health, right?
Mm,
I've seen plenty of churches
mm,
preach sermon series on it, have weeks dedicated to it, etc. So I don't want to. I'm not a guy. I critique the church, but I don't condemn the church, right? I love the
right.
church.
We
But
all
I,
do.
but
Mhm.
having said that, I'll say this: there is a contingent of people in the church, that care more about pretending to be holy than practicing being healed.
Yeah.
And I
Mm,
think that is to its detriment, because I genuinely believe that God will not heal what we refuse to be honest about. God will not
mm.
fix what we
Can't.
refuse to face. In fact, you can't even be a Christian unless you're being willing to be honest about how broken you are.
Amen.
Mhm.
That's Christianity 101. We teach that in new members class. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
and sadly, there are saints who've been in the church for a long time, right? And they could quote John 3:16, right, and Habakkuk, whatever, but they still ain't healed,
Mm,
right? And it's because, like, we will cultivate most whatever we celebrate the most, right? And unfortunately, in the church, we don't celebrate people really being healed, even though there's all types of language in the Bible about being free, and whole, and all of these types of things. All the healing Jesus performed. We skip over those passages for the sake of just being a holy huddle, rather than being a broken body of believers who desperately communicate our need for Jesus. And so,
Mm,
that's good. And so
mm.
I'm gonna push just a little bit further in that. That is it just for the body of believers in the church, or does the church really exemplify the world? Like, does it? How do we broaden the scope? Because if that is the case, then the brother and sister who on Sunday morning who's outside of the doors needs exactly what you're saying just as much as those who are
Well,
inside of the
inside.
doors.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
so, how do we become the church that reaches outside and sees beyond just church in the church?
No, I got you.
Yeah.
I got you. Go ahead, Ned. You can go first,
Uh,
and then I'll
so
hop
I,
in.
I was going to respond to that too. I think you're absolutely correct. I think that, even for those churches that are displaying and living that, the ability or the responsibility to take that beyond the church walls is to me is the most important piece. If you are not taking the message beyond the pulpit, then you're not doing the service that God has called you to do.
Mhm.
And it's so important that you know the church should be the model for what the world lives by, and not the opposite, not the reversal. A
Mm,
lot of times we have churches who are, you know, operating like the world operates, or dealing with things the way that the world deals with things, and we should be setting the tone differently, and we should be modeling. How do we help brothers understand how to become more in tune and more in touch with what they feel, so that they
mm,
can better communicate, so that they can be better fathers, better husbands, better children of God, better children to their parents even. um, and we don't do, I personally can say to you, and no means am I a pastor, but I can say to you, having dealt with and been around my share, that I don't see that as well or as often as it should be. um, and it's the cry that we all been wanting to see more of. How do we help beyond the church walls?
No, I think that's solid, and I think That's a great question. And to that, I'll say, like, John 3:16 doesn't say, for God so loved the church that he gave his only begotten son.
Right.
It says, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. Right. And the mission and mandate of the church is not to just, praise the Lord in a building, but to love on the block. Right. If you were to manifest John 3:16, if God loves us, then we are to love our community. Right. And so there's no such thing, in my opinion, as a healthy church if it's not playing a part of bringing about a healthy community. Right. In my opinion. And so, for an example, like we're a young church and we got a lot to learn still, and we've made a lot of mistakes, and there's a lot of things that we can do better, to be quite clear. But recently we
and a lot of things you've done well.
Yeah, but recently we ran a campaign called "We Outside." It's a popular phrase in the culture right now, and the tagline was to learning to leave the building in order to love on the block. And so one Sunday, what we did was we literally shut down our Sunday morning service, and rather than receive an offering, we gave an offering, our bodies as living sacrifices, by doing service projects in our community on a Sunday morning during the hours of our normal service. And that was one way to communicate to our people, maybe a first step toward us understanding that we're not just called to be healed by God, we're called to be agents of God's healing in our community. And we're only living out a part of our Christianity if we're only serving the body and not the block. So those are some thoughts that I would share in that regard. So
that's good meat. That's good meat right there, bro. I definitely like that. I like that a lot. Yeah. Listen, there needs to be more of that. I know it's one of the ability or the opportunity that is on the plate for us on a regular to do outreach ministry, to touch the community where they are, and not wait for them to show up to where we are, is important.
Yeah, it's called incarnational ministry, man. And
there you go.
If I could really quickly, man, like, so just to help people, because I love helping people. Like, anything that I learn or teach or whatever, I share. And so 5 L's is a grid that I use to love on people and lead people in general. But in terms of really the church reaching the neighborhood and not just being healed by Jesus, but being agents of Jesus healing to the community. And so first you want to listen, right? Most leaders want to start by leading, but no, a good leader starts by listening. The Bible says, be slow to speak and swift to hear, right? And then after you listen long enough, right, you learn. Like, if you listen to a person long enough, they'll tell you why they don't believe in Jesus, or why they don't want to be a part of their own healing, whatever you call it, right?
Yep.
You learn, and then after you learn their stories, you lament, right? You cry with them about the things that break their hearts, right? And that break the community's hearts, right? And then after you lament, now you're ready to love them, because it's just a simple principle. The more you learn a person, the better you can love them, right? And now you've earned the right to lead them, right? And so listen, learn, lament, love, and now you've earned the right to lead them. And I think Jesus embodies all of that and throughout his life and ministry. So
nice. The 5 L's. We got to incorporate that, bro.
You got it, man. You got it.
I like that. Listen, I think that we could probably spend another 20, 30 minutes in our dialogue, bro.
Absolutely.
But I want to make sure that we kind of be fair and honest with other folks' time, as well as yours and mine. But I want to let folks know that, again, as I stated earlier, this is the beginning of multiple conversations.
Yeah.
This is a dialogue that is so important and so critical that I think that, it warrants us to come to the table, not just this one time. So I pray, Pastor Bellamy, that you will make yourself available to us again. I'll get on your calendar so that we can get you back at the table again with us, man. And there's a few other folks who I'm interested in getting here as well, just so that we can start talking about not just, opening our eyes to this dialogue, but then also let's start processing. Because one of the things that I'm really big on is I love to be able to open the door and pull the covers back. But then it's the now what phase for me.
That's good.
Now that we've pulled the cover back and you see it, now what do we do? And how do we deal with it? And how do we manage it? And how do we give some folks some helpful tips on how to navigate this thing called life? regardless of what the situation may be. So that's what I want to see happening in the future, and I will definitely be making that happen and bringing some folks on to talk about that more in depthly. The door is always open to you, bro. Please
Yes,
know
sir.
that you are you know you're my boy, you're my brother,
Yes,
and
sir.
even though we run around here and do all the stuff we do, a phone call is always all that's needed, and we're right there at the table.
Yes, sir.
I
Yes, sir.
appreciate you taking the time, man, strictly off of a phone call to
Yes,
say
sir.
I'm there, and I
Absolutely.
thank you for your time and your energy, man, and your words of wisdom. They I pray that they help some folks. I want to say to all of the folks who took a moment to just listen in and watch and be
Yeah.
a part of today's show. I appreciate you. Thank you for sharing your words. Thank you for your encouragement. Thank you for your just being a part of the conversation. Here at Royalty Mission Network, our desire is always about pulling the covers back just so that the conversation becomes real and those tough dialogues that a lot of folks kind of want to glaze over or brush over. So we're going to continue to do our part to bring those conversations to the table. I pray that you continue to be a part of the family and just join us every time that we're here. Next week, my sister Monica will be on with Barbershop Conversations. I'm sorry, with Beauty Shop Conversations, excuse me. Where she will come on and bring some stuff to the table. You know already, if you didn't see it in her dialogue today, she got some in-depth conversations that's going to make you go,
Great
So
questions. Great
be
questions. I
ready
like it.
when you come on with my sister. She's going to bring the fire, bring the heat. But we're also going to do the same here. Know that we are here for you. Know that you'll always have a safe place to come and commune and conversate and build right here with us at Royalty Mission Network. Know that we love you, we care about you, and as always, we're praying for you. Take care of yourselves, and God bless you.
Bless you.